Well, funny you should bring up the prequels because the Revenge of the Sith re-released a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, and the most of the Star Wars community has acknowledged that the resurgence in love for the prequels has changed drastically in 20 years. Obviously, memes didn't exist as much. Actually, I saw this earlier. Oh, the first meme. I think some people are saying like 1921. There's a cartoon. Oh, that's funny.
Because like when you talk about the first meme, that's going to be really hard to say because how do you define exactly? I think there's like the idea of the first internet meme and what we think of as the modern meme. I don't know when, but that probably emerged in the early internet.
How you think you look when a flashlight is taken? So the camera with the flash, how you really look. So
I'm just gonna say with how crazy the internet is, I could very well see that being a fake, honestly. But maybe it's genuine. But that seems that's also very strikingly good quality if that's taken from a newspaper, which is what I'm assuming that's from.
Maybe it was redesigned, but if that actually happened in 1921, my point is that the internet culture was not as big in the early 2000s when the prequels were releasing as they are now. Over time, the stiff dialogue had turned into very funny moments and, one-liners that can be added to almost any situation. Anyone says hello there, you obviously know what you're going to say back to them. We were watching the whole movie in theaters and Zach was mouthing the words of the memeable lines right back at hold on, this whole operation was your idea. I guess I was doing it too. So it's something that has become fond to us to almost remember those memes that made you think this movie isn't so bad. It's just stupid fun. Yeah. Sheev Talks gave Revenge of the Sith a 5 out of 10, which sits it right in the middle, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be the greatest. It just is fun. It's fun to watch. It's fun to experience this transition from Anakin to the dark side, and then also just remembering the joy from the memes of these lines that are taken from the movie. So that's a difference that has changed and has garnered a lot of respect in how these movies are. And even Isaac has this theory that in 20 years, well, I guess 10 years now, because it's been 10 years, almost 10 years since The Force Awakens released. And so in another 10 years, it'll be the 20th anniversary. And he thinks that there's a possibility we will be just as accepting of the sequels as we are now of the prequels.
Possibly. I mean, you never know. I still kind of think that Disney Star Wars and some of the very distinctive choices they made are much more dramatic. But then again, I don't know. But I think what you're talking about. Sorry, you can go.
Before you go on, I'm just thinking about like what memes have already come up from the sequels, and they're mostly kind of coming back around to the Flash is like making fun of the bad parts of the movie. So the memes of the sequels are like, they fly now, and yes, they're not as memeable as the prequels, but like, we're laughing at they fly now because it's bad. Just the same as we are laughing at some of the stiff dialogue from Revenge of the Sith. But it's like, it's different somehow. Maybe it'll change in 10 years. I don't know. But there's also not as much to quote from the sequels, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just want to get that in.
I think they kind of can hit that valley of just mid, the uncanny valley of mid. And I'm using this as the slang term because I think I've referred to it before, but there's the idea of you have good art. That's just good art. Like that's just some good stuff right there. Then you have things that are so bad they're good, which is like that's Troll 2, where it's so atrociously bad that you just can't help but enjoy because it's so bad. And then there's there's things which are kind of in the middle where they're just I don't feel anything. And that's the worst thing you can feel. And maybe that's how people will feel towards them. It'll be interesting to see. We'll come back in 10 years and tell you what you know. But again, what you're talking about though is like that fondness you're having is memes often have a sort of nostalgia to them because they emerge from a particular time and they you can think about them and you're remembering that. But also, I think the power of memes is that their communication, you use them as like a way to express how you feel towards something or just something funny. But also there is sort of way of taking ownership, I believe, of a certain film that emerges spontaneously. I think this is going to get a little worse as films and Hollywood tries to artificially create and sustain and develop memes for their own benefit, I think it's kind of ruins the enjoyment because, but a good meme is the idea that it emerges spontaneously. You find it funny. It's like, hey, it's like your buddy saying, hey, I got a joke about this. And then you laugh about it and you tell it to your friends and it becomes a thing within your group. That it's like that again on steroids, because that's what the internet does. It takes everything between human interaction and cranks it up to 11. But a good meme is like, it's a way of like, I find this funny and this is how I interplay with it. It's, when I'm watching Star Wars and it says hello there and I say General Kenobi, like that's a way of taking ownership in a sense of the film, of that thing that you enjoy as well. And I think that's what also gives it more power, more potency, and again it's a way that memes are very expressive and powerful for that way. So but as I kind of referenced here though, I think that there's, as more studios are trying to jump into that, it kind of, I don't think it's going to, you can't really ruin you can't really ruin memes because the internet is so big that it's so spontaneous you can never fully control it. But I think there's often, like especially with like Marvel humor, like you can just see how they're trying to make things that are more memeable so that people will talk about it and laugh about it or whatever, but it kind of ruins it because it just ruins all sincerity. Like where if everything's a joke, then like nothing's worthwhile. And I think the best example of that is Marvel humor, where it kind of emerged and it was kind of original and funny, where like there wasn't like everything wasn't a joke, but like they had like a lot of humor that downplayed a lot of elements that you normally wouldn't. But now again, it's just become to the point where everything's supposed to be humorous, everything's a joke, everything's ha ha ha, well I bet he's gonna monologue now or something like that, and then that kind of ruins the experience. So
yeah,
I think that's kind of where we're going a little bit, and where it's going to be maybe a bit more difficult, where companies are going to be, you're going to have like an intern trying to make a meme, and then if everybody does it, then it's like, oh, look at that, they're relatable, wow. It's like, hello fellow kids,
how do you do fellow kids,
I too am funny and can meme, ha 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 ha. And it's like, it's not the same when you have it that emerges spontaneously. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how it goes again in like the next 10-20 years. Again, it's not going to ever go away or really lose its charm, but I think it's the relationship between the internet per se, and especially meme culture and how it's used, is changing. And we've seen that as the companies are trying to use that as a new way, because it's always a new way to get more eyes on their product.